Welcome back to Female Founder World. I'm Jasmine Garnsworthy. I'm the host of the show. And today I'm chatting with Bunny Ghatora, the co-founder of Blume. She started the skincare brand with her sister back in 2018, and they are now stocked in more than 2,000 stores, including Ulta and Sephora Canada. All right, let's get into the show.
You are now entering Female Founder World with your host, Jasmine Garnsworthy.
Bunny, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're the co-founder of a beauty brand called Blume, which is stocked in over 2,000 stores, including Sephora Canada. You're in Ulta. I want to understand for folks who, haven't kind of heard of Blume, aren't familiar with what you're doing, what's the elevator pitch? How do you explain what you're building over there?
Yeah, so Blume is a clean brand really focused on acne-prone skin and sensitive skin. We create products that you need for everyday routines that target some of the concerns that we have that are so normal but often stigmatized. And when we launched the company, we surveyed our community, and 60% of girls and women said that they felt their self-esteem plummet as they go through puberty. So that's really our North Star stat, and the stat that we've set out to change through our products. And I think one thing that so many of us can relate to and have experienced is that when we do, go through things like, acne, or we have scarring and discoloration, it's very normal things that so many of us go through, yet it often feels very shamed or stigmatized. It feels like, as a teenager, when I was experiencing acne or my sister was experiencing acne, we were never taught how to take care of our skin. Instead, we were always just like, oh my God, we used toothpaste growing up, which is like absolutely terrible. But that's
I did that too.
I think we all did, right? Like that's the reason that we had. And then, you use all these like harsh actives and treatments, on your very gentle, essentially baby skin. And then you grow up and you realize like, oh, wait a minute, I actually like caused way more harm than I needed to. And in addition to that, I didn't like take care of, I didn't put in the effort towards self-care because I was just so caught up in, making the problem go away. So that's really where Blume is rooted. And, we just want to create products that make people feel good. And we always say, healthy skin is the goal, not perfect skin. And as our bodies change and as our skin changes, we want to make sure that our products are always nourishing and protecting our skin barrier.
I love all of that. And so what is the age of your consumer? What's the demographic that you're going after?
Yeah, so we're really rooted in kind of that Gen Z consumer, somebody who's, going through some of these life changes for the first time, whether it be getting her period for the first time, having acne for the first time, using her very first deodorant. But one thing that we've been, really excited about, and one thing that, we didn't even anticipate when we launched the company, is that our products are resonating with people of all ages. So, we'll have people who are using the Meltdown Acne Oil during pregnancy because, they're experiencing different types of hormonal acne, and, the salicylated or retinols on the market are no longer safe for them to use. And Gigi Hadid found our deodorant while she was pregnant because she had to switch from, an aluminum-based deodorant to a natural deodorant. And so moments like that are obviously really cool when somebody shouts out the product, but it just shows that, our products do resonate with people of all ages. I actually just got an email that my customer service team forwarded me from somebody who said, I think she said that she was 72 and she's had acne since she was like 17 years old, and she's using Meltdown now, and just her experience with the product. It was like an essay long, but
wow,
those moments are always so cool and so important. And just a reminder that, again, these things that we experience, whether it be around deodorant or acne or discoloration, they're not just rooted in, one specific time frame. So we do have customers of all ages, but we are rooted in that Gen Z customer.
Very cool. And we're going to talk about Gigi Hadid and more about your marketing and influencer plan, all of that. But I want to talk about, you mentioned, a Gen Z customer and going through that kind of real transition through puberty, which leads me perfectly to this conversation I want to have about this big pivot that you had in the business. Because originally Blume, you co-founded it with your sister, like 2016, 2017. It was a period subscription box, and now you're a skincare company. What was the thinking behind that pivot? I think a lot of people, I don't know, they're kind of like chugging along in businesses that are doing okay. They don't know if they should be making a pivot. What informed that decision for you, and how did you come to that decision to shift?
Love that question. So I don't even know if a lot of people know this, but my sister and I, we started the company, the very first iteration of the company, actually as students. And prior to that, we actually had a cake decorating business together. So I think when we had the cake decorating business, I think I was like 16 and my sister was like 18. So we were like uber babies. And so Taryn was away studying in university. She's in the UK studying law, and I was here studying accounting. And as part of her education in her master's thesis, she was learning about girls in developing countries who were missing, up to 25% of their schooling due to not having access to sanitation and period products. And, it really made her think about how, being from a family of immigrants, how lucky we are that we were growing up in North America and, we had the opportunity to always go to school, and that was never something that, we even had to think about yet. Had our family stayed in India and grown up in India, things could have been very different for us, and we wouldn't have necessarily maybe had the opportunities that we have now. And so that's really where, the first idea of the company started. And so we launched with an organic cat and tampon subscription service with self-care goods, really about destigmatizing, the shame that we felt growing up around periods and not being able to talk about them openly. And we really saw that there's, a direct correlation between why, there is a lack of access in developing countries to the shame and stigma. And it's because, people didn't feel comfortable talking about it, including ourselves, in our own households and around our own communities. And so we that was the first iteration of the company that we launched. And a partial proceeds, from the very first day up until today, go towards Days for Girls, where we support girls in developing countries with reusable products so that they don't have to miss school. And that's something that we're really proud of and something that we've started until day one. But the pivot happened because the company was really rooted in, the ethos and our why, which is that we wanted to provide people like us with better alternatives and products that made them feel good, and really bash the taboos and stigmas around not just periods, but also acne, and also some of the, again, very normal experiences that we went through growing up and talking to our peers and our friends and so on. We realized we're a very universal experience. And so the original way we were, meeting that why, we realized wasn't necessarily the best. And again, we started as students, so we were very green. We were, like sponges. We were absorbing as we went and kind of just learning on the fly. And through our customer base and through talking to our customers and learning from them, they actually helped us launch Blume into what it is today. So our products were crowd created with them. They tried our lab samples before we launched. They even helped us choose like the product name or the product names and the brand colors and the visuals and all those things. So it was a very community oriented brand, and we worked really closely with our customers. And we're really proud of, the fact that we were able to see that, like, okay, version 1 is good for certain reasons, but not working for other reasons. And what can we take and learn out of that? The community being a big part of it, and pivot to something that we feel like is, more scalable and something that is going to be able to be a global brand the way that we want it to. And that's kind of how we launched and landed on Blume. So Blume's been around for 4 years now. And it's just been a really exciting journey.
You mentioned something before we hit record that I thought was really cool about like focusing on your why and not the what. Can you repeat what that was? Because I think that folks who are in this position of rethinking their business or thinking about a pivot will find that really interesting.
Yeah. So I think we learned this, really early on in our entrepreneurial journey. And I think it's Simon Sinek who has a TED Talk that's, I think it's called The Power of Why. I could be wrong on that, so I might need to fact check. And, what we learned and what we've kind of taken from day one is that it's to be an entrepreneur, to wake up every day and like put your blood, sweat, and tears into something that you have no idea what it's going to turn into and if it's going to work, and be faced with a new challenge every day. You need to be committed to the why. And the why is, why you exist in this world. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? And, how do you resonate with it? Why is it important to you and who it is? And so for us, it was really around, wanting to provide, again, better solutions for problems that we experience every single day that we found to be often stigmatized and to, have essentially a detriment on ourselves growing up as well as our community. And so that's been our why from the very beginning, starting with periods and moving into acne and so on and so forth. And that why is still, Blume's same why today, with our stat that 60% of people feel their self-esteem plummet as they go through puberty, but how we're meeting that why and how we're now tracking against it and how we're making sure that, we still feel connected to the brand is the same. It's the same from the day that we started. The difference is that we are no longer, a period subscription box. And instead, we're a brand that has, core clear products that, meet each of these needs, and our products and our education and our content and events all kind of follow suit.
Very cool. In 2019, I know that you raised, I've got here 3 million in a seed round. I want to talk about that in a second, but what I'm actually most interested in is what you had to do in 2018 to get to the point where you could raise that money. Like, what were you doing to get traction to show that this thing that you're working on is something that people should bet on?
Yeah, I think, speaking of the why, that was a really big part of it. It was finding investors that were aligned with our why. and who saw, what the big vision was and the problem that we were solving. And then traction, we were growing really quickly. We had a few really great partnerships that were just budding and we're in conversation with different retailers. And at the end, the products really worked. And we had reviews and press and all these things that, were backing up the fact that the products were efficacious. And, being a CPG brand, being a product brand, being something that is, a skincare brand in the beauty industry where there is, there's a lot of options and there's a lot of different brands, having good product work. So I think those were kind of the three pillars that we really focused on. And, at the time it was just Taryn and I, we were alone and kind of doing everything. We had a couple contractors and agencies. And so it was kind of like, a lot of years leading up to that point that got us to being able to raise that round.
In 2018, when you were kind of launching the products for the first time, launching products is really expensive. How were you funding that before you had investors on board?
I mean, really, really scrappy. Like we were just using whatever revenue we had to turn it back into the business. We we're just working with our suppliers. We were working with a lot of small suppliers at the time that, had small MOQs, or, we're really just trying to focus and build relationships. Also, I think one thing that is not always the best advice in a brand or a CPG brand, but we didn't start with like the same branded bottles that we have now. And we didn't start with everything being screen
I was going to ask.
and beautiful. We really started super scrappy with like a clear bottle with a label on it. We invested into certain things in the brand for sure, like the website and the photography and making sure that all those things look really chic. But we didn't have money to do, a 25,000 plus run of like custom bottles plus custom caps and then be able to, fill those. And so we had to make those sacrifices. And I think, it's definitely a risk because with a product brand, it's definitely not like software. It's, you have one chance to launch, you have one chance to give a customer, the best impression that you can. And our bottles, were so far from perfect at that point, but we had no choice because we didn't have the funding or the resources to launch. And we're thankful that people believed in the product enough and that the product was good enough and the reviews spoke for themselves that people didn't knock us for the packaging. But it was definitely a work in progress. And we're on our third iteration of packaging now.
And it looks awesome. And I was going to ask that question because you look at it now and I'm like, oh, this is a brand that's like, I spent quite a bit of money on their branding and on their packaging because it looks very slick. I saw you guys at the Founder Made event in New York and you really stood out from a lot of the other brands there just because it looked so, very modern, very cool. And we do a series on Female Founder World in our newsletter where it's called Site Snooping. And we basically look at, yes, the e-commerce tech stack that some big e-commerce brands are using, but we also do screenshots of what their website looks like when they launched versus what they look like now and how that's changed. Because I think, I don't know, you can see these really established brands and want to have something like that, but then that has taken multiple years and multiple iterations to get to that point. And it's actually so much more helpful to see what they launched with that was able to get them traction and what they focused on and how that was able to get them traction, I think.
100%. It's crazy how far a little bit of good design, a nice color palette, and like a good quality sticker can get you. But to your point, like no brand is an overnight success, even when on the outside, it looks like it is. Like, I think, most brands do have to go through a period of whether it be, bad design or whether it be, components with stickers on them or something else. Like I think even product formulations go through different iterations. It's just the reality of being a brand that's ever evolving and, the world is moving at a faster speed than ever before. And so it's normal to evolve and, there shouldn't be any stigma around that either.
Totally. The world is moving so quickly and particularly I think in like this digital marketing space. And I'm curious about what you were doing in 2018, 2019 in terms of marketing to get traction versus what's actually working now because things are really different. They're changing like every 6 months. So what was working then? What's working now?
So, I mean, transparently, Meta was a big, big channel for us in 2018 and 2019. It was like, I don't want to say it was easy, but in comparison to like what's happening in today's world, it was a lot easier. And, I think again, like we didn't come from a brand world. We're, barely had jobs prior to launching Blume. We were students. And so I think 2018 we were in a world where like Meta kind of made sense to me, and I was like, oh, okay, you run this at a small budget, and you see how it does, and then you scale it up, and then if that works, and you A/B test, this against it, and so on and so forth, and you can kind of figure it out. And I feel like that's like not the case anymore. So, right now we're investing a lot in community. We're investing a lot in, IRL post pandemic and just being able to meet with our community in real life. I think, authenticity is really important to people today. And of course, it'd be hilarious if I didn't mention it. Of course, TikTok. A lot of resources are going towards TikTok, both on the organic side as well as, the gifting side and just partnering with the right people. I personally am like a big fan of TikTok. Like I saw like a thing, like an article one day, like a few months ago that was like, TikTok's competitor isn't like social media platforms. It's actually like Netflix. And I was like, you know what? That is so true because I like watch way more TikToks now than I do like a TV show on Netflix or on a different streaming platform. And so I think that it's just really interesting to learn about that platform and to try to crack it and figure out, what is it that resonates with people and why.
What is it that resonates with people and why? Like, what is working for you? And what, when you're looking at partnering with influencers and gifting, what kind of folks are cutting through? Anything unexpected there?
Yeah, I think it really is the authenticity. I think it's so obvious, both for me as like a watcher of TikTok as well as somebody who's trying to, seed TikToks and get people to promote it is it's as soon as, I don't know, for some reason, as soon as you're on TikTok and something feels like it's trying to sell you something, you like don't want to watch it anymore. At least that's like how my brain works. So it's, I think what does resonate with people is like, again, it's almost like the why. It's like when somebody is able to tell you why you should buy something, that's what makes it watchable. Versus again, like the what, like if somebody on TikTok was like, this is an acne oil, this is why you should buy it. It reduces the redness. I'd kind of like, okay, probably not. But if they're like, oh, this is what my skin looked like, 2 weeks ago. Isn't that crazy? And then I started using this oil and like, it works for me now. I think those are the things that are like, they just feel more genuine. But I think that's also why it's so hard because essentially you're trying to get somebody to act like they're being authentic. And I think that's why the moments that do go viral or the moments that do get the most amount of traction are the ones that are honestly unplanned. And, we'll have like some incredible TikTokers post something and they'll get like, hundreds of thousands of views and we'll be like, wow, I didn't even, we gifted you maybe 3 months ago or maybe even longer than that. Or we didn't even know that, you bought the product or that you've been trying the product. And I think those moments are, I guess, to answer your question, what's the biggest difference is that like before you could plan for growth and you could plan for these moments. And I think now they are less repeatable and more of a surprise. And I think, there's a beauty to that, where in some cases you can always create your own luck, but I think it's also a challenge because you can't estimate a TikTok going viral every month. You can't estimate that, this certain video that somebody's going to post is going to be the one that people resonate with the most. And so, it's no longer the game of like increasing budget from 500 a day to 750 to 1,000 a day. And it's, it's more so just staying close to the community and making sure that, again, the brand and the product and the authenticity of the brand shines through so that people want to share it.
Oh, that's really interesting. You can't plan for growth. That sounds so true and really resonates. When you look at TikTok influencers or people that you want to gift product to or partner with, is it about trying to, get as many people as possible? Is there a certain kind of content creator that you kind of go for? Does the following count matter? Do you want them to be in the beauty space? Like, who are you looking at?
Really great questions. I mean, it's a little bit of like, I guess, almost all of the above. I would say follower count doesn't matter as much as like engagement metrics matter for us when we're looking at gifting. I think beauty category overall is important because again, it comes down to authenticity. If somebody does like cooking videos all day long, and then all of a sudden they like post about skincare and they do hashtag ad or like hashtag sponsored or gifted or whatever it might be, it's probably very likely that somebody will feel like that's not not necessarily the case. Or alternatively, their demographic just might not be somebody who like wants to think about skincare or whatever. I think also TikTok is really smart about showing you the content that you want to see. And so I don't know necessarily if like a cooking account would post about like an acne oil and even get any traction on that video, or if that would just be something that doesn't do well. So we try to always keep, towards categories that we feel like are at least aligned. We try to include like just, a different variety of influencers, like different ages or different focuses, different demographics. I think diversity is really, really important to us. We want to make sure that, who our customer is, who's behind the brand, and who's, promoting the brand, on Instagram and TikTok, that all those three things align, and that, we're not just, always choosing one aesthetic. And I think, that can, again, because of the way the TikTok algorithm works, it can, it can be a way where it's harder to find, to break out of what the algorithm is showing you. And so we always try to make sure that we're keeping that in mind.
Yeah. Are you looking at gifting like dozens, hundreds, thousands of influencers? How do you think about the quantity?
Yeah, I think TikTok's interesting because it's a little bit of quantity and quality.
Yeah.
I think it is a bit of a numbers game because you just never know. The more TikToks that get posted, the more likely something is to go viral, of course. And there's some creators who have said, like, I know that especially like around the Grammys or around like the Oscars and things like that, some creators will literally make like 30 videos that night, and like maybe 2 or 3 will be the ones that go viral, and everything else will get like 100 views. And so it does turn into a bit of a numbers game.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I found that so interesting, and I'll be like, wow, I really don't need to watch the Grammys because I'm getting the play-by-play right here. But I think that is so interesting. So
Yeah.
we kind of do both. I think at the end of the day, what's most important to us is just making sure that our community is reflected and that we're partnering with influencers that, we think are authentic and would resonate. And so sometimes that number is a lot higher, sometimes it's a lot lower. I will say, it also, again, a difference between like 2018 and now is that it's not, necessarily like as easy to run a mass gifting campaign on TikTok, because on Instagram, you can just like DM somebody, their email is right there. Like they made it really easy to process that. Whereas on TikTok, you can't DM a creator if they're not following you back. There's a lot more like, privacy settings. Not every TikTok creator has their Instagram linked. So it's not always that easy to just reach out and DM. And I think that's almost the beauty of it, because it does keep things feeling more authentic, and it doesn't feel like, every influencer is getting PR and that's all they're posting. And I think that's maybe what hurt Instagram a little bit, and why, Instagram gifting doesn't work the same way that it used to, is that it got saturated, right? And I think TikTok's already such a poppin' platform that it's only a matter of time. And so it's almost nice that it adds a layer of like a challenge to be able to do partnerships and gifting.
Yeah. You spoke about community and IRL activations before. Are you focused on community on social media channels? Do you have a Geneva group? Like where is that community convening?
Yeah, so we don't have a Geneva group, but I mean, would love to hear, or we can talk about offline, of like what you're seeing is working well in community. I feel like you did such an incredible job on that. We are focused right now on kind of like more IRL events and, meeting our customers in real life. And we're sold in Sephora Canada. So we're also doing some partnerships with Sephora Canada and doing some community initiatives through that channel, as well as Ulta in the US. So I think, another thing is that post-pandemic, the concept of how we all create community has also changed. It was like pre-pandemic and then like pandemic community, and now it's like post-pandemic and what that looks like. And I think, people are still figuring out what group they want to be in, how often they want to be in real life. I think there's, a realistic feeling of like almost social fatigue that people are experiencing. And so just trying to make sure that, our events are valuable and that they, mean something to the people who are coming out to them. And, there's a lot of enthusiasts around skin and around beauty, or around, feeling confident in their own skin. So those are the kind of things that we're just trying to figure out as we launch into more community initiatives and really partner with our customers.
I know that you just launched your Blume version of a pimple patch. They're very cute. They're these like little flowers. The purple one's very sweet. What was the process like and the timeline of thinking, okay, we want to launch a product like this, through the product development and then finally launching? How long did that take?
The Blume Buds took us over a year. And I think, our kind of like mission with Blume Buds is that, again, it's really around celebrating acne and around not having to feel like ashamed or embarrassed by it, and just being able to say like, yeah, I have a pimple and I'm protecting it now so that I don't pick at it and so that it heals. And whether that means that somebody wants to wear the Blume Bud out in public, during the day, or whether that means that they just want to wear it at night before they go to sleep or around the house, that's totally up to them. But, we wanted to make it be a really effective pimple patch. And, Meltdown is our acne oil. That's, our number one bestseller. And so it just made sense for a pimple patch to go with it. And, and to, really replicate and resonate what the brand, means and stands for when it comes to, bashing those stigmas and taboos, specifically around acne and for young people who have felt like they need to like cover up their acne. This is just like a soft, gentle way to encourage that's not necessarily always the case. And, sometimes you might feel like you want to, and other times you might feel like, no, actually I'm okay with feeling good about it. And I think that's just something that we all kind of figure out on our own and as we go. But yeah.
For folks who haven't launched a beauty product before, or maybe people who have launching beauty products within their brand and they're just like, I don't know if I'm following the same process that other people are. What does that year, like, what does it look like when you break it down? How much time are you spending in the R&D phase versus the actual product development and the packaging versus your marketing phase? How does that all feed into that 12 months?
Yeah, so I will say Bloom Buds are a little bit different because for most beauty products, or like for like your serums or oils, it needs to go through a period of stability and compatibility testing in the component. And so those are two tests that we did not have to do with our Bloom Buds just because of the way that they're made in the hydrocolloid material and the clinical testing that's already done on the material. Because of course we didn't invent the material or anything like that. So that actually did speed up the Bloom Bud timeline. In general, when we do launch a new product, it actually takes us closer to 2 years. And so a little bit about how our process works is, first we'll come up with, what is the product that we want to create? Why do we think that it needs to exist in the world? What's different about it? How are we, if it's a product that, again, beauty, it's a saturated market. A lot of us have a lot of products that kind of do the same thing in different ways. And I think one of the most beautiful things about beauty is that it's not, it's not I only buy this brand and nothing else. And like, I'm stuck to it. It's very versatile. Like I think most of us have multiple cleansers, in our docket at a time. We have multiple serums. We're using like different eyeshadow palettes, like a slew of lipsticks. Like all these things are not, it's not just like a one and done. It's kind of like you're constantly switching up your routine, trying something new, etc. And so we, kind of look at what is the product that we want to create? Why do we want to create it? Does it fit into our Bloom line? Does it feel like it's authentic to who we are? So on and so forth. Once we've decided on that product, then we'll kind of basically do a brief where we do a bunch of research, figuring out what the product is, why it exists, or, what ingredients we want to be in it, etc. And then we'll share it with our labs. And then we just do a bunch of back and forth with the labs. Some products take like over 30 revisions and they'll be in development for a really long time. Like there's products that we've started years and years ago that are still in development. We just are still waiting to get it right. And then other times, sometimes the lab and us, we just really are able to just like mesh and we see the vision together and we get that iteration a lot quicker, which we love when that happens, but it's like very rare and almost never happens. And then we go into, stability, compatibility testing, as well as all of our like clinical tests. So we want to make sure all of our products are tested to be irritating or not. They're tested to be derm backed and derm tested. And so each of those processes have its own timeline. So there's somewhere between 6 to 12 weeks in total. And some of those can't start until the prior one is done. So like our compatibility test, backs up onto our stability test, et cetera. And so basically as that testing's happening, then we start like visioning, okay, what do we want the product to look like? What kind of packaging do we want it to be in? The name, the copy, how do we want to speak about it? So on and so forth. And then, we just keep our fingers crossed that the testing goes well and that nothing comes up at the 11th hour. And if it does, then we have to go back to the drawing board and be like, okay, what is the thing that's not working here? We've had it where like, we'll be, deep into compatibility testing and then the product will change colors and we need to change the preservative system, or it'll be like, oh, actually, this is going to leak in transit, or if it gets to like a certain temperature, it's like not going to work anymore. And if you're shipping this to Texas in August, you might have issues. And so all those things kind of come into effect. And so that's really where, that process can't start until you finalize a formula, but finalizing the formula can take anywhere between, really quick to years and years. And so then that's really where it takes a lot of time. And I think for us at Blume, we're really intentional with our product development. We don't want to be just launching things for the sake of launching them. We want them to matter.
I want to talk about your team now. You mentioned in the beginning it was just you and your sister, really scrappy, kind of pulling things together. What does your team look like now? And how did you think about those first hires? Were you hiring for folks that you could delegate off the everyday admin operational tasks, or are you bringing in real leaders to kind of be, heads of department?
Yeah, great question. So, the really nice thing about having a co-founder, and I think for Sharon and I, because we're sisters, is that we also, we've worked together for a really long time. And we also have very different skill sets. So basically from day one, the business was almost always split into two, which is that she's like marketing, brand, product, like the visionary. She's incredible. And then I'm much more like analytical, logistical. I do like the supply chain, shipping, and all that good stuff. So I think, the nice thing is that that was automatically split into two without us even really having to verbalize like what facet of the company each of us was going to own. And then we basically just hired for the roles, that each of us needed support for, with marketing being at the beginning of it. And, social media was like first and foremost. We had like an ads agency at the very beginning, design we brought on pretty soon, of course, customer service. And we've, basically had a community role from the very beginning as well. And then over time now we have some real leaders. So now we have like an ops leader who's incredible and doing all the things that I don't know how to do. Once I basically got beyond my spreadsheet skills, and sales leader who facilitates, a lot of our retail conversations and the Sephoras and the Ultas of the world. And she's been, at Sephora for 7 years and is really incredible. And so, you get to a point where you can, delegate off the tasks, like you said, that you just need them to be done. And then, after that point, you realize that you need people who have kind of been to the rodeo before and can scale and see around corners and support around the things that, we don't have the skills to do.
So what does your day look like now when you have a team like that? Are you doing much of the doing in the business, or are you kind of just meeting with those department heads and certain people in the team on a regular basis?
No, we're still doing a lot of the doing for sure. I think, being a small team, we're only, 10 people full time, and being a small team and also just, it almost still feels like everybody is running their own like little startup within the startup. So while we have, some more senior leaders, they don't necessarily have like a team underneath of them or a team that's able to handle. So all of us are really doing the doing. And we always make jokes like, our VP of ops was like at customs the other week, like picking up the boxes from the delivery and like dropping them off to get kitted. And so we all are still doing the scrappy stuff. And I think, that is really startup life. And while things often look really glamorous on the outside and, we'll be able to put together like a really incredible event and it'll be beautiful. I'm sure you experience this all the time. It's like, we're also the ones who are still like, pulling up our sleeves and like setting the tables or doing, lugging the boxes up a flight of stairs or whatever those things might be. And I think that's just part of the game and part of running a business. And, we're just really grateful to have a team that is also willing to do the doing with us, because it takes a village for sure to build a business.
The last question that I ask everyone who comes on the show is just for a resource. And that can be, a book, a practice, a podcast, something that's kind of helping you as you've been building the business, but also like up-leveling as a leader and someone who can scale something really large. Is there anything that you recommend?
So one thing that I learned very, very early on that my co-founder and I are really big like supporters of is the concept of time blocking. And so if you ever look at like my calendar on any given, day or week, I block off basically what are the things that I want to focus on during those times. And in some cases it's almost like a to-do list, but for me it's a lot more productive than a to-do list, because it forces me to say, okay, at 11 a.m. I'm working on, a deck for X, Y, and Z. And that just means that for that hour I am, I'm not being disturbed. I'm not working on anything else. If I want to start working on something before, I'm like, well, in order for me to actually, not work on this, I have to find a different block on my calendar and so on and so forth. And it's something that, we've implemented across a lot of folks on our team. And it's also, it allows us to say like, look, this is undisrupted time. This is time that, I need to get through, major blocks. And what I found is when I'm not time blocking and I don't have that system set up, none of the important things get done. And instead I'm just doing the things that are like landing on my desk that are often, not as important. Maybe they're urgent, but they're not as important. And so time blocking is one thing that I absolutely love. And so certain things that I need to do, on a weekly or a monthly basis, I have this as reoccurring invites to myself that always appear. Things that are just like a one-off, I have it's, that time blocked. And I just do everything I can to not book over it. But that's like a resource that has been super, super, super valuable to me. And I can't imagine like organizing my week without time blocking.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of time blocking. I think as you also become answerable to more people, like both in your team or investors, or as as the business grows as well, it becomes more important to like protect that time. Otherwise, you really can be all over the shop. You mentioned like planning out your week. I'm also a big fan of this like Monday hour one concept, which is where you spend an hour on Mondays or Sunday afternoons. And you kind of just like plan out the week and you block out those times and what it looks like. Are you someone who does that at the beginning of the week? Are you planning out your month? Like what other things are you kind of doing day to day?
Good question. I spend some time on Sundays planning out my week and just deleting anything off my calendar that I don't need or that's not going to work. Or, sometimes I just don't want to do something a certain week. And I'm like, I'd rather just move this out, whether it be a
Yeah.
meeting or whether it be an introductory
Yeah.
call. And then I always just try to make sure that I've outlined, whether it be on Sunday or on Monday morning, what my key focuses are for the week. Sometimes they're repetitive from the previous week. Other times they are new. And then I just make sure that I have, adequate time blocked. And, if I'm saying that like TikTok is a focus and I have no time blocked on my calendar for TikTok, well, like that's kind of an issue. So those are the things that just kind of keep me in check.
Okay. Also, are you guys, you and your sister on the TikTok account, or is your social media content creator? Like, who is the face of TikTok?
It's not us. We are not that good at camera. So we try to make videos and we don't do a great job. But we're trying to get better. The authenticity, again, coming back to that, is so key. But no, we have creators who are incredible and show up so well and represent the brand so well. And so they do a much better job than we do, but we're trying to get better at it.
Yeah, it's a skill for sure. And also I think it's just like, it can be a mental block as well. I think I'm in that space of like, it's hard to find the right people to be the kind of like the front facing folks for your brand. But at the same time, it's really hard to be the person that is the front of the brand and is making all of that content for sure.
Job, right? So it's like, it's hard to switch gears also from like filming to, concepting to doing, the other work that's got to be done. So it's definitely tough, but I think it's fun. I think when you can figure out a rhythm and a rhyme that makes it feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, people keep telling me like, oh, just film what you're doing day to day, just film your normal day and turn that into content. And I'm like, it's boring. It's just me sitting at a computer. What am I going to do? Like overlay? Wouldn't even know what like the audio would be on something like that. That sounds terrible. Anyway, that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you so much for your time, Bunny. It was awesome to learn about how you're building Blume, and congrats on all the success so far.
Thank you so much. Excited to attend one of your events soon, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Yes. Thanks for tuning into that episode of the Female Founder World podcast. If you enjoyed the show, and if you're a regular listener, you know what I'm about to ask. Please drop us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. Sounds like a little favor, but it goes a huge way in getting us up those podcast rankings, getting us seen, and helping us find new sponsors for the program, which makes it possible to bring all of this free content to you guys. I hope you love the show. See you next time.